Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Zach.
Took me a sec to get my camera working.
Oh, well, it's good to see you. As we wait for others to join, I'll go ahead and start getting some introductions out of the way. We have a full value-packed program for you today. Feel free to introduce yourself, who you are, where you work, what you do in the chat box, and make sure you take our poll, our anonymous poll. We're just trying to get a sense of who has participated in the Blacksmith Awards in the past, or maybe you're new and trying to get a lay of the land. My name is Sarah Coughlin, and I'm part of the Cincinnati PRSA leadership team. Right now I serve as our programs chair, and part of what I do in that regard is putting together monthly programs, helping to put together monthly programs like this. It's certainly several people are involved with bringing this kind of thing together. I have a business called Signal Tree Creative Communications based outside of Cincinnati. And I'm going to introduce a few important people on the call today. First of all, we have a new business manager, and this is her first monthly program participating with us. She's been a part of our leadership team, and her name is Jamie Widmer, and we're so glad to have her. If you have been involved in the chapter, you know Elliot Campbell, you probably interacted with him. She's our new Elliot, and we're so glad to have her. It's a big job, but she has already dove right in and is really helping us. Jamie, why don't you unmute and say hello if you would.
Hi, everybody. So I met a couple of you guys, and I'm Jamie Widmer. I will be the new chapter business manager. I'm extremely grateful for all of Elliot's help over the past month while he has been out in California and working in this transition process. If anybody has any questions or needs anything, please just don't hesitate to reach out to me. So yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Thanks, Jamie. Thank you. Okay, and we have some of our Blacksmiths team here, of course. So first of all, Dave Honchel, co-chair of the Blacksmiths Awards Committee.
Hello, everybody. I've met many of you over the past couple of years. I moved to Cincinnati in 2019, and when I jumped in to try to see where I could get involved with PRSA, they suggested the Blacksmith Awards, and I've been part of it ever since, and just hope that we can continue to bring you a quality program. And that's part of what this event today is, to help you all in preparing your packages to be competitive, and that we can celebrate all your hard work.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate what you're doing. Elizabeth DeRosier is Dave's co-chair this year. She unfortunately could not be here today. She's transitioning into a new job, yay for her. But she's helped put together a really great program for today. So, but Terry Hornback-Torres, who's also on the Blacksmiths Committee, is here.
Hi, everybody. It's good to be here. I am an independent PR consultant, and also happen to do a lot of freelance writing along with that as well, and I've been a longtime member of PRSA. I'm happy to be part of this group and happy to help you all do what you need to get those entries in, because it's a bit of a process, and you need to start on that just as soon as possible. So that's what we're here for.
No doubt, it is a big task, and that's why we're here. I'm looking forward to getting some tips on how I can get started on that. And thank you to you both. I know from personal experience what a monster planning the Blacksmiths Awards can be. So we thank you for your time on that. A couple of housekeeping things. First of all, we are recording. You probably saw a notice about that. Everyone's doing a good job keeping their microphone muted. Thank you. We will have a Q&A and a workshop session later on. We do ask you to go ahead and drop notes in the chat. If you think of a question or want to introduce yourself, feel free to do that in the chat box. And we will invite you to unmute at certain parts of this program. So As you know, the Blacksmith Awards are hosted each year to recognize and celebrate the outstanding work of our local PR community. It's been a grind, and there's been incredible work being done in the midst of these uncertain times. So today's event is going to be about avoiding uncertainty when it comes to the Blacksmith Awards. So here's a little overview of what we're going to cover today. We're going to have a brief overview of important dates, categories, and entry criteria for the 2021 Blacksmith Awards specifically. Okay, so Terry and Dave are going to give us some great information regarding that. And then we will switch over to a panel conversation, a Q&A with experienced judges. And we have Elise Ramer, APR, CPRC, Awards Chair from the Florida PR Association. And we have Megan Coughlin, APR, President of the Houston PRSA Chapter. And we'll introduce them a little bit later in the program. And then finally, we will have an interactive workshop session to help you jumpstart your entries, including worksheets and handouts that you can reference after today's session. So at this point, I'm going to kick it over to Terry, and she has some information she will share with you specifically for this year's Blacksmith Awards program.
Okay. It's coming up here very quickly. So we're only a month away from the opening of the entry portal. And that's where you will be able to get all of your information about the different categories, what judges are looking for, information needed for your entry. So that comes up Tuesday, July 6th. And our recommendation is always start right now. There's an early deadline for Friday, August 13th. And we highly recommend that you aim for that. But the regular entry deadline, which is also the drop dead deadline, is Friday, September 10th. And finally, the Blacksmith Awards ceremony will be on Tuesday, November 16th. And more information will be forthcoming on details involving that. So now I'm going to turn it over to Dave. We've got some new categories this year, and he will cover those.
Thank you, Terry. And as it has been the practice the last several years, we try to align our awards programs with what is at nationals. That way, if you're trying to go beyond just the blacksmith and going for a silver anvil, bronze anvil, you already have a great start, so that we're not trying to make you recreate the wheel with these categories. So as such, looking at nationals, there are 5 new entry categories, and want to briefly provide them for you here. First, we've all been experiencing COVID-19. So obviously one of the things that is part of that in campaigns is COVID-19 challenges. It's a subcategory under crisis comms. It's actually broken out into 2. There is the COVID-19 challenges and then the non-COVID-19 challenges. Basically, if it's exactly as it's presented. COVID-19 challenges, challenges you have faced directly because of the pandemic. Other crisis communication challenges that aren't affected because of the pandemic would fall into the other. I skipped the first one. Let me go back to it. The other campaign category that's new is the most effective diversity, equity, and inclusion campaign. These are efforts devoted to promoting inclusivity or dismantle discrimination for racial, ethnic, religious, or sexual orientation and gender differences. Campaigns that have been focused on that. In the tactics categories, there are 3 new entries that you can compete for. One is brand videos. These are videos that show off a brand in order to help educate, to inspire, or develop more trust and loyalty to a specific brand. Then there's best tactical pivot. It's when you're faced with an unexpected challenge or complication. How did you overcome it? Describe your creative or innovative solution to an issue that could have otherwise had a significant negative repercussion for a business or an organization, and how did you overcome that? And then last, and possibly a very exciting category, is TikTok engagement. How did you use TikTok to engage and interact with your audience? Show your most engaging TikTok accounts with measurable results. That's always important. What are those results? And then how did you influence your audience through the use of TikTok? The entry process, for these categories, as well as all the other categories that we've had in the previous year, is the same as last year. We'll be, as Terry mentioned, we'll be using the Open Water Camp entry platform. You're going to find detailed information on how to create and log in if you've not created an account previously. If you've had an account in the last 2 years in the Blacksmith Awards, that same account will be used, so you don't have to recreate the wheel there. And you'll also find tips for preparing your entries and completing the judging rubrics at the Blacksmith Awards Information Hub shown there. As shown, I think we have a graphic that will show the hub there. With that, I'm going to turn it back to Sarah and let her talk a little bit more about our event and our panelists.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Thank you, Terry. Jamie, if you could put up that next poll that we have. Terry mentioned that our Blacksmith Awards ceremony is slated for Tuesday, November 16th. Well, one thing that our leadership team with the PRSA, Cincinnati PRSA chapter, like everybody else probably within your organization is dealing with is, do we plan this to be in person or do we do it virtually again? So we'd like to hear from you while you're here today. How are you feeling about that? Do you think that we should go ahead and plan that November event in person only if we have certain precautions in place, or should we just plan that event online? Let us know what you think. Again, completely anonymous poll, just trying to get a read of the room here. And I'm going to go ahead and move toward the next part of our program today, which is quite a highlight. We have wonderful guests joining us to help you get inside the mind of a judge as you prepare your Blacksmith Award entries. So we have Elise Ramer, APR, CPRC Awards Chair from the Florida PR Association, and Megan Coughlin, APR, President of the Houston PRSA Chapter. And by the way, the reason that they're both here is because their chapters have been involved in judging our award entries in the past. So you're going to get right to the source here today. So they're going to give us recommendations on how we can impress judges with our entries. Okay, so again, for everybody in the audience, feel free to drop questions in the chat box as we go. All right, and I've got some questions already prepared here to start facilitating our presentation, but we'd like to hear from everyone who's here today. Feel free to put your questions in that chat box. So Elise, I'll start with you. When you're judging award entries, what are you looking for most? What's top of mind that you're looking for?
Somebody who follows the directions. It starts with that simple. Let's just be clear here. While we all sort of know in talking with our peers and then, seeing what you guys have been, what you've been doing, whether, showing your proof on social media or whatnot, we all sort of know what is successful amongst our peers, right? We've been talking about it, either asking for help or sharing information. But when you are applying the success of a project and then putting it into a very tight box in a very, with a, very short amount of words in order to explain it, you have to follow the directions, and you have to understand, the rules and exactly what category you're applying for. I was just on a call. Our awards ceremony, our awards competition for the state is in the judging portion at the moment. So I just sat in on a call with other judges, and someone was applying for in the community relations division. And yet they didn't necessarily discuss how that improved their community relations within the community. Now, while they gave food for first responders, it was a food chain. That's a great thing, but they didn't, they couldn't show or discuss how that actually helped to improve their relations with the community. So first off, it's making sure you're selecting the right category for the project itself, and being able to show that show the results based on the what exactly the judges are looking for that specific category.
Thank you, Elise. Megan, what do you think? What are you looking for most?
I think Elise hit the nail on the head very simply and directly, that it's following the directions and the requirements of your specific award. Chapters across the country have different entry requirements, but the term requirements is what's most important. It's following the directions and answering the questions and the requirements of the entry. And so what I mean by that is I've seen numerous entries that have requirements, whether it's regarding research, implementation, budget, evaluation, where people tend to either not answer or skim over. And there's a reason why those requirements are there. The 4-step process of public relations, the strategic process that we follow, that is there for a reason. And a lot of times the entries are to show that you have a very in-depth knowledge of that process. And so what I have tend to find in judging is that someone may have a beautiful collateral piece, an amazing video, a really good press release, a great campaign that was implemented, but unfortunately, they didn't outline in the entry how they got to that piece or that process. And so I just really stress, be careful to read the requirements of the entry and to very directly provide answers of how you met those requirements. Otherwise, unfortunately, that very amazing video that everyone told you how great it was, or that just absolutely creative annual report that you got a lot of good reviews on, isn't going to cut the mark of your award from a judge's perspective.
Great insight. So share the why behind why you chose that communications tactic, right? So that's great. So Megan, by the way, it sounds like you've had some experience with awards at your Houston chapter. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and your involvement with awards programs.
Sure. So I have been judging awards for almost 20 years. I have been a part of the Public Relations Association of Mississippi, PRAM, when I lived in Mississippi all the way back in the 2000s, and I've been chair of awards. I was the president of the state association there, and then I've been with PRSA Houston since 2017, program chair, vice president, president-elect, all the way to current president, and have judged on all of those with PRSA as well. And I unfortunately, because I'm always in some sort of role, whether it's on the board or presiding, I haven't ever had an opportunity to actually enter an award. I've always judged them. So I will say, to be completely transparent, I have a lot of experience on the judging side, but I don't know that I can tell you exactly how it feels to submit an award on that side. And so, maybe at a disadvantage not knowing what that's like, but I will say that I think it can some ways, I work in government, we deal with a lot of contracts and grants, and it's sort of writing grants in a way that there are certain things and certain questions that are asked that you have to show evidence and show and demonstrate. And I kind of feel like it's a little bit similar in the sense that you're being asked to prove or show something, and if you can do that in your persuasive writing and show the evidence there, then that's going to help you out a lot.
Great, thank you. And Elise, how about you? We kind of skipped right past the introductions there. I want to give you an opportunity to share with us your experience in judging awards.
Sure. So I oversee the awards division for the entire state of Florida right now for the Florida Public Relations Association, and there are 13 sub-chapters within that statewide organization. I've been the chapter awards chair 5 years in a row, and then had since been elevated to the state board to oversee the competition. I have entered, luckily for us, you are allowed to enter even if you are a chair. And so I have won the highest award in the state. I've won divisions, I've won categories. I've also entered PRSA Awards for Tampa Bay. So I understand sort of the differences of the way that PRSA approaches it, which is not very different at all from Florida. But, as a judge at the state level and judging, judging chapters like yours, it's the one thing that is clear is that the same mistakes are made no matter what organization, state level. It doesn't matter. The same. It is a universal. It is a universal sort of issue. And I will say that there is nothing scarier in the world than hitting submit that award submission, especially now that they're digital. I know the feeling. I feel for all of you. I really do. Yeah, and that's about it for that part.
Does anybody remember all the binders that people used to submit awards in? I am so glad that life is over. I don't know if other people still do that, but I just remember having binders after binders after binders.
Tables laid out with all of them at the end. Yeah, lots of table rentals.
Right, lots of paper. Oh gosh. So we talked a little bit about some of the common errors and hangups that you've seen. Megan, are there other common errors that we should talk about, and how do you recommend that our chapter members work to prevent making those mistakes?
Yeah, I would say that the two items that I think are a reoccurring theme, like Elise said, no matter what organization you belong to, is the research and evaluation pieces. Research, I don't know that all communications professionals have a very thorough understanding of what research means in PR and communications, and that there's different types of research. There's primary, there's secondary, there's informal, and there's formal. And that research, even if you did conduct research and you were able to identify that in your injury, the purpose of research is to inform your entire plan. It is to inform whether you do a newsletter or a video or a campaign or community relations or outreach. And I think a lot of times that is misunderstood in an entry, that you should understand what research is and the different types of research. Conduct research based on whatever budget you have. You don't have to have money to do research. I've worked in nonprofit and government, and for education, so I understand that. But showing a direct correlation of how your research drove your entire plan, because you're using that to inform. And then to the evaluation piece, that's fantastic. If you got 1 million impressions, that's great. If your boss liked what you did, that's great. If someone told you on social media that this was a wonderful campaign or video, but your evaluation has to tie to your measurable objectives and whether or not you accomplish those. And I think sometimes that is also not thoroughly understood, that evaluation isn't 2 thumbs up, isn't a feel good. It has to tie to an actual objective, and it has to tie back to your overall goal. And you know what? It's okay if you didn't achieve exactly what you set out to achieve. It's important to show that you know how to evaluate that, not whether or not you specifically accomplished it, because you probably were successful in some way. But I think that research and evaluation are the 2 pieces that people struggle with the most in an entry.
I see a lot of head nodding. Elise?
It's like Megan is my soulmate over there, and I have to say, so it's funny because I wrote that down. I said research. I can't tell you how annoying it is to read entries that are like, we conducted research and then moved on to the next section. Well, what did you do? You have to show it. Did you I have this talk that I give about like research in real life. I'm like, okay, did you stop in and talk to your boss for a one-on-one? I was like, that's an intercept interview. Like use, I was like, if you're scrolling on social media, I'm like, it's either like a communications audit or or whatnot. You have to come up with what the correlation of the act is. And like, there's so much real research out there that you don't realize that you're doing every day, chatting at the water cooler, and I'm like, it's not necessarily it's like an informal focus, but just say how you got there, or, you have to actually say, this is the research I did and this is how I did it. But getting it in 3 sentences is difficult, or 4, but understanding that the research part is so much more important necessarily, because it correlates exactly with the evaluation. Spending more time and giving that a little bit more real estate on your summary is going to help you in the long run. The more people that understand that up front, it's great. And show that you had a plan. I understand that a lot of times we roll into things. It's okay to work backwards. Like, you don't realize you probably have 25 emails in your, back in your inbox, where you discussed, back and forth with other people on your team, or other people like, hey, I have this idea. This is how I think I'm going to do it. You technically, yes, it's an informal plan, but you did have a plan, and you can show that. And use that, because proof is really the only thing that we can sort of go back and forth on in reading these entries, and making sure that, okay, well, if they missed a step or they forgot to say it, if you can show me that you did it, I can at least understand that where you were going, which would allot for more points, rather than leaving it out entirely. And then, everyone, I hate to give a goose egg on a section, saying that you did things, but you can't prove that you necessarily did them, if that makes sense. I'm just not sure how much, because I know it varies by chapter, how much support material that you're allowed to give, but I've noticed that not enough people, are attaching their plans, their research proof, and everything else, just that what they did, which sort of helps the judges reach an end goal of, wow, this person really put in the work. They deserve the higher marks, and they deserve to win the category.
Okay. All right. So attach the proof of research. Don't just talk about the fact that you did it. Interesting. Okay. And one thing that I've heard come up now here a couple of times is the real estate, the space that we have to submit these entries, because we are limited. I think a tactic is a page, campaigns are maybe a couple pages, if I remember right. But you do have to keep it to a certain page count, I think. So and Maria, I'm going to break this question down a little bit, because it's something that we wanted to make sure we asked today, about fitting all the necessary information and stats into the 1 to 2 page submission requirements. So it's almost like we have to look at this kind of like an inverted pyramid kind of style. We got to get that important information up front. Megan, do you have any tips for how we make sure that we fit that important information in, and we're not getting to the bottom of the page and leaving out the important stuff?
I definitely think it's a challenge to sum up what you did in the, the word characters and space that you have, but it can certainly be done. I think it's an opportunity for you to reach in very deeply and find that true writing and persuasive writing and clarity and conciseness that you have. So I would just ask a really harsh question of who cares, or why does this matter? Meaning that if you submitted this to a judge, that's what they're thinking. Who cares, and why does this matter? If I'm a judge in Houston, I don't live in Cincinnati, I don't know your program, I don't know anything about what you're doing, and you have to literally sell this with facts and data, right? And following the entries, but with your persuasive writing. And I would say, do not be a procrastinator. PR people are notorious for being procrastinators. Late entry fees are popular. I am not a procrastinator, so I like to get things done, but do not rush yourself in this. That's going to be evident if you did. Also, have a partner that can proofread your work. Maybe even someone that's not on your team or that had any emotional attachment to this entry, because they're going to give you honest feedback, and they're going to answer that question of who cares or why this matters. But it can be done. We can write consistently, concisely. You can be persuasive, but I would say don't wait to the last minute to do it. And also take your emotion out of it, be objective, and think like a judge when you're writing this, because you're pitching it to someone that's never met you, that may never meet you, that's in a completely different area, and you're having to pitch this to someone who is looking at this very objectively, and you've got to be in that mind frame as well.
Good stuff. Elise, what do you think?
I'm going to take the counter approach. I am a work smart, not hard person. Busy. So I call it rip off and duplicate. And that is finding the top winning entry in, the entire competition from last year, or the top 3, depending on division or whatnot. And you look at it. And this is how I won the biggest award for the state, which basically took last year's winning entry. I started changing it out sentence by sentence. That simple. I went in sentence by sentence. I was like, okay, well, if this is a car company that was doing this, well, my real estate company, how can I change that for this? And literally just did it that way. So the sense of, you already knew this is the entire real estate. What can I switch out? Because they've already done the hard work for you. They figured out how to succinctly get all that information in. Let's just say that they had 2 objectives and you had 3. Well, there's a little movement that you can make, but you see exactly how the way it was supposed to be written, in the succinct fashion. You see exactly what kind of proof that they provided. Their objectives, in the planning section match verbatim the the part in the evaluation section, because those should match. Those should be brothers. Like if you're mentioning it here, I want to see what your results are here. So somebody else has already done all that hard work for you. So rip off and duplicate. I totally agree with Megan's recommendation of you need to have people outside of your organization, outside of your company, and maybe even just other friends of yours that are that are knowledgeable enough to give you honest feedback about it. Like, I have no idea. I read this. I still have no idea what this project was about. That's a big red flag, because if they don't understand it, I'm not going to understand it. And it doesn't matter. PR projects are PR projects. At the end of the day, they're things that people are seeing, and the message is being absorbed in some way, shape, or form. If they can't get that message through on the 1.5 pages or the 1 page or whatever, however long it is, then that tells you that there's a big communication gap even within the entry itself. And so you can't win an award if you can't communicate it clearly.
Good points. Okay, great. Well, I'm gonna look at the chat box here for a question, a second part of Maria's question. About budgets. So she thought in a previous entry that she added all the necessary info regarding the budget, but then who hasn't had this happen before? You realize you get your scorecard back and realize you got dinged a few points for something maybe you didn't even realize that you needed. So Maria's asking, could you share some specifics in regards to what judges are looking for in regards to budget?
I'll take a stab. I would say anything, because that does happen. That is another piece. I think that budget tends to be left out, and if it is included, sometimes it's very sparse. But I think that showing that you understand financial management as it relates to your project is super important. Public relations, communications people, we always have that joke, oh, I went to communications because I don't do math. Unfortunately, budgeting is a very integral part of what we do, and to grow and be successful in your career, you need to know how to do that. Sometimes PR and communications doesn't get a lot of money, and sometimes it has an extraordinary budget if you're lucky. But I think that showing that you understand how the budget works, what budget you had for your project, how it was executed, and how it was successful is important. Again, it depends on the requirement of the entry. That might be a big piece, it may not. If it's not, still include something, whether it's a couple of lines that says, I had $90,000 for this, let me break it down, I spent 10 on this, whatever on this, just to show that you understand how the budget supported this. There are going to be people who say, well, I don't even see the budget. My manager does that. I don't have anything to do with it. That's not a good answer. You have to be a professional. And if you weren't included in the budget, you need to pull your supervisor or your manager or your director, and you need to say, I want to know more about how we work, and I want to know how we operate, because that shows initiative. It also shows that you truly care about how all the pieces go into an award, because money is a factor. If you had zero budget, then sell this entry, sell it, because that's amazing. If you were able to pull something off and be successful without a budget, which we do a lot in PR and communications, then you know, shine with that, and that can be a nice persuasive piece there. But it's very important. The budget is very, very important.
Mm-hmm. I have to piggyback on that, because there is no such thing as a zero budget. I'm sorry, as a judge, I can't tell you, makes me red in the face. Nothing is free. Every single thing has value, in kind, trade. There's a value to be put on everything. So let's just say that there was a graphic designer who donated 20 hours of work. Go on Glassdoor, find out what the average hourly wage is for a freelance graphic designer, and the in-kind value is this. It is great that there was $0 that the company had to be spent. I kind of still want to know what that there is a value to it, and it just sort of helps to paint the whole picture. It brings it all back together, because I'm like, okay, this is a not-for-profit. They really have no budget. But at the same time, you know, all of this in-kind work, this is what it would add up to. How lucky were we, you know, that we can show value back to our organization without having to, you know, either request a special, you know, request funds from the board of directors. You know, we were able to do this on our own without having to tap resources. It just makes it even more extra special for us at the end. Other things I like to know, we want to know what things cost. I just think that at the end, I kind of want to know, you know, the cost of staff cost was this, materials cost was this, you know, at the end of the day, what it was, you know, again, depending upon the rules within your, sorry, Siri. She interrupts me all the time. It depends upon your rules on how much you want to show or have to discuss, but still in the support material, I would still love to see a line by line, not a full budget. It could just be a Word doc with staff, you know, $300, in-kind support from graphic designer, $2,000, you know, perceived total value of project, you know, whatever it was. At least then we can take a look at it, and it again, just sort of puts a nice bow on the entire project for the judges, because we know, you know, kind of what it cost or a perceived value.
Yeah, really, this is all, you know, it's making it easy for the judges, right, to recognize the good work that you've done. And you have to do that in the entry, make it easy for them to understand what the project is, what you accomplished, put it all out there for them, right?
Yes. I was going to say, your judge's rubric is available to your members, correct?
I believe so.
So
yep.
that's sort of the secret weapon for as a judge, and as a judge and as a person who enters, I write my entry based on the rubric. It's where I start. I go line for line. Okay, well, they want to know what my goal is. Here's my 1-sentence goal. Well, here are my 3 objectives, my SMART objectives. Are they SMART? You know, are they strategic, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely? Did I say all of those things in there, you know, for those next 2 sentences? I just go back and forth. And if I've answered their questions, the ones that they're specifically looking for when they're reading it, then I've done more work than anybody else has done. And it takes all the guesswork out of it. You know exactly what they want, and you write it exactly the way that they want it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's it.
Simple, right?
If you're not a rule follower, now is the time to be when you're doing your entries.
Right. Okay, I want to ask you both to share an award-winning entry that you have either submitted. I know, Megan, you said you haven't been able to because of your involvement, but maybe it's something that stands out in your mind as something you judge. I want you to share with us that in a moment. Meanwhile, Maria, thank you for your questions. And if anybody else has questions, put them in the chat. We're getting close to the end of our question session, part of the program. So Megan, can you think of an entry that you've looked at, judged, that stands out in your mind, and why did that stick with you?
You know, I can't think of a specific company or someone that I want to give a shout out to, but this is going to sound very redundant, but I will say that those entries that really make you go, wow, are the ones that are thorough but concise and really left you feeling really good about their accomplishment. And it's almost like they somehow figured out a way to place you in their award or in their scenario or in their experience where you know, I said earlier, I don't know you, or I don't know your city, or I don't know your chapter, but when you're done reading this award, it's not just that they did great research and they documented, their budget was there, their plan was there, they achieved their goals and objectives. It's that you can feel the experience of what they went through, and you can feel the pride and the excitement of everything that they did. It comes out, y'all. It's very evident. It's there that someone who took the time to execute an amazing tactic or campaign or any other special award, you can feel it virtually in the document or in the folder or whatever you're looking at. And at the end, you feel good and you are proud of that person. And as a judge, you can confidently give them high marks and know that you can walk away because of that. It's evident in the work that they do. And it is evident in the supporting material, but the supporting material is not what sways me. It's how you entered your award, and it's me feeling at the end of it that it was truly an accomplishment, and that I feel proud for you, and that you know you feel proud for yourself, and you took the time to let the judges know and to let everybody else know why that award is should be worthy of an honor of high remarks.
I love that. Elise, does anything stand out in your mind? One of those.
I will say this, there's always some sense of like urgency or a problem that needs solving. Like there's no reason why ultimately what we're doing, right? With every project, there's something, a message that needs to be put out there or a problem that needs to be solved. One of the submissions that I did was on the most expensive house in the country. And it was a really huge launch. But I wasn't allowed to promote the house to, I was only allowed to promote it to very specific magazines and TV outlets, no newspapers, and that the owner would need final approval on every word, every image, everything. I mean, this guy was a nut. But we were still able to solve the problem. And that was the story that we told, was how were we able to, to land all of these major, major things, keeping a client happy and keeping my job at the same time, because it's a very, it's a very hard thing. But Megan is so right. I was able to tell, really get across that urgency right away of, this was a very hard problem to solve. This is how we plan to solve it. And then, there was emotional buy-in, 100%. So, it does require some wordsmithing, but if you think about it as a formula, it's achievable. Absolutely.
Great. So it's just, make sure you've got you're getting all that information that's asked for in the rubric, right? And then add some emotion to it, put the judge in the situation.
It's got to be authentic though. It can't be that you're trying to manipulate or, let me throw in some fluffy, filly, puppy love so that you feel good about my entry. It has to be authentic, and that will come out in the entry, and that will come out in your own blood, sweat, and tears of the actual implementation and the development of the project. That can't be replicated. If it's not there, it's just not there.
Okay, one final question for the two of you before we let you off the hook here. So why do we do this? Why should we take the time to put these award packages together?
because we love torture. Because I think for me, it's sort of a annual check-in on myself and my skills as a PR professional, right? And in showing that even to myself, that the things that are so important to what we do, research and planning and implementation and evaluation, are a part of every project, not just ones that I feel would be award-winning enough. And it's just that the most successful things that we do have all of these elements in it, whether or not we have gone out, with that in mind in the beginning or not. I said it just becomes second nature, but at the same time, I do. It's a gut punch and a gut check in the best possible way every single year.
Mm-hmm. Great.
I'll add, communications is a thankless profession. And we are that group that everybody comes to us when there's a problem or when something's not right. And it's not very often that communications and PR people get a lot of thanks for all that we do. We do way more than a news release, a newsletter. So we're good at social media. We're good at graphic design. Can you design this for me? There's so much that we do, and there's so much that we do behind the scenes. And if we don't thank ourselves or recognize ourselves, who else is going to do it? So I think it's that time, in addition to what Elise is saying, is to really, it's time to promote yourself, and it's time to promote your team. And it's time to show others the value of communications, and that all that work, that blood, sweat, and tears that you put in, all that we do is honorable and it deserves recognition. And whether or not you win an award, it's going to make you a better communicator, because going through that award process is really turning it around, looking inward, because you might realize, ooh, I didn't do research, or ooh, I really didn't do so well. And that's okay, because not every award winner that submits their first time wins, and that takes time. So it is so important to acknowledge the communications and PR profession for all of the work that we do. There's still a lot of education out there that people need to know about what we do. And I think this is a great way, but I think it's a good way to be proud of the work that you've done, and also to make yourself a better professional by going through that entry process. Same with the APR.
I agree. I agree on that. Definitely.
Quick aside, writing award submissions is the best APR prep you could possibly do. It's tied together with our organization. That is part of their, prior to going to sit for their exam, they have to write their award application. So yes, the two are one and the same. Sorry, giddy about it too, because it's true. It's 100% true.
Great points from both of you. It's been so helpful to hear firsthand from judges. Lots of great takeaways. We are going to start our breakout sessions here in a moment. Elise and Megan, you're welcome to join our breakout rooms if you wish. I do have two more questions, I think, that are more for our Blacksmiths committee. And so Dave and Terry, I'm going to ask you if you can chime in on these. First of all, when it comes to winning awards, they are, the judging is a point-based system, correct? And there can be more than one winner in a category. Is that right?
That is correct. It's there is a threshold for, you have to score above a certain point value to be considered an award winner. Everybody that scores above that threshold will be a winner. Now, the one who scores the highest in that category is the Blacksmith winner. So everyone that scores above that threshold will get an award. It's just that we recognize one in particular in there as the Blacksmith as being the highest in that category.
Mm-hmm. Do you have to hit a certain point threshold to get the Blacksmith Award? I can't remember.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there is a higher point level for the Blacksmith than there is for the Award of Excellence.
Okay.
So
that is true.
Okay. And then another category type question. So if I recall correctly, we have 3 types of categories. We have tactics, which are individual tactics that you perform. It might be a printed piece or an email campaign, or we have campaigns which integrate different tactics and explain a strategy behind pulling this entire campaign together, right? And then we also have professional categories. So we have like the agency of the year, small agency of the year, large agency, professional of the year. We have those 3 different like overarching type of categories. Adam has asked, do you have any recommendations for finding the best category to apply for? He does a variety of work, marketing, PR, graphic design for a nonprofit. How can he find the best categories? Where do you start?
I'll let you start, Terry.
You know, there can be several answers to this question, but first of all, I would look at where your strengths were. If you had an outstanding campaign itself, then you would enter a campaign category. And as Sarah was saying, if you had a specific piece, say a written piece or a branded content piece, a specific tactic, then you would go to the tactical categories. So you may have a really strong, say, direct mail piece, but you don't feel that the campaign that was built around it was quite as strong. Maybe you enter that in a tactical category. However, even with tactics, you have to consider, again, budget. You have to consider research. You have to still consider the things that drive it. We don't do those, the tactical portions of our work willy-nilly. There's a purpose behind it, and there's a result that needs to be achieved. So I would look at what you've done over the course of the year, decide whether it fits more into a campaign versus a tactical category, and then start to narrow it down from there.
Okay.
I agree. I answered a little bit in the chat, and that's essentially what I was answering in the chat, is that don't look at it as here's the categories and trying to force fit an entry into a category. Look at what you've done. What is it that you think is, hey, this is really award winning, this is really groundbreaking, and then look at the categories of what it best fits in. You start with what it is you're trying to highlight.
Okay, good. Thank you both. Let's go ahead and jump in our breakouts for just a few more minutes. We're kind of behind, and then Dave and Terry will kind of lead a discussion, and you can dive into that a little bit more in your breakouts. Thank you. Unmute myself. Okay, well, we'll wrap it up quickly here since we are just over the hour. I want to thank Elise, Megan, for being here, sharing their knowledge with us. Our Blacksmiths team, thank you for all that you're doing. We have one last poll question. Jamie, if you don't mind throwing that last poll up there. This workshop was part of our monthly programming, and we asked you earlier about the blacksmith ceremony in November. Do you want to have that in person, or would you feel more comfortable doing that as a virtual ceremony again? Well, what about right now? What about these monthly programs? Are you interested in getting to, if you can remember, before a year ago, we used to have these workshops in person, and we would get together at different agencies, organizations that would host us. And a lot of times we'd have lunch and we'd have a little networking and a guest speaker. So do you want to get back to doing those in person, or do you want to do them online? I feel like it's a toss up. It's so convenient to just hop on your computer, and I can join you from way out here in West Harrison to downtown to wherever you're at, Texas, Florida. It's great, but I sure do miss getting together in person. So let us know how you feel about that. And online, okay, convenience wins. Thank you for all your time and your taking our polls today. Dave, I'm gonna kick it over to you to wrap this up. Dave, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Just one quick reminder that, as we stated previously, the Blacksmith Awards entry portal will open in 1 month on Tuesday, July 6th. If you've previously entered in the portal, you do not need to create a new account. You already have one. If you haven't, then you will need to create an account, but it is fairly painless, or we try to make it as painless. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact either myself or Elizabeth, or reach out to Terry if you have her contact, and ask us the question. We're here to help you because we want to help you earn the awards that you have rightfully deserved from all the hard work and great outstanding projects and programs and tactics that you've done. And then I would like to add thanks for joining, and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.